Hey, it's so great to be back with you guys this week. We are going to be continuing with the story of Moses. He is a pretty big character in the Bible. In fact, his story spans over 4 books of the Old Testament. There is loads that we can learn from his story and apply to our lives today.
We thought we would start with a short recap of where we are up to so far. God has led Moses and the Israelites out of Egypt where they were being treated harshly and unfairly. He has made a way for them to cross the Red Sea safely by parting it so that they could walk across on dry land. He has then defeated their enemies, the Egyptians, by closing the sea back over them so that they could not harm the Israelites, his chosen people.
God now has a destination in mind, the promised land, but he has some serious preparing to do to make his people ready. They have literally only just been freed and rescued from being slaves in Egypt in what would have seemed like a total whirlwind moment. He has a lot to teach them about himself to make them promised land ready.
It is a bit like when you buy a car. Before it is ready to be driven around and to be guided to all these different places by the driver, it has to have an MOT, some serious checks and tests to make sure that it's ready to go out on the road. During the MOT, if any part of the car was a little bit run down or not quite working properly, it would be identified and have to be fixed or repaired before it was allowed to get back out onto the road.
What God goes on to do with the Israelites once he has led them safely away from Egypt is to give them a spiritual MOT. Although the life they have now, freed from the Egyptians, with God to lead and guide them, is far greater than their harsh life in Egypt, whenever they face a difficult situation or a challenge, they instantly moan to Moses, "Why did you ever lead us out of Egypt? We had food there. It would have been better if we had died there." God is now going to use this time, pre-promised land, to really grow and test their faith and trust in him. So why not jump into today's story, which is found in Exodus 16, or you could use a story version or one of the videos included in the description and guides below.
God provides for them miraculously in the desert. When the Israelites were hungry, God gave them food from heaven. It says that each morning he would rain down bread from heaven called manna, and in the evening he would give them meat called quail. Each day they are to gather as much as they need for that day, but they are told, do not keep any for tomorrow or it'll go bad and become filled with maggots. In Luke chapter 11 verses 2 to 4, Jesus is teaching the disciples how to pray, and he says, when you pray, say, give us today our daily bread.
The Israelites had to come daily to God for provision. God could have provided a week's worth of food for them to gather each time, but instead he chose to provide daily. One of the things he might have been teaching the Israelites through this was to come to him daily.
Often when we feel like we have all that we need, we can take things into our own hands and forget to come to God. But Jesus is our good spiritual food. When we eat earthly food, it satisfies our hunger temporarily, but soon we become hungry again and need to eat.
Jesus himself references this story in John chapter 6 verse 25 to 59. After Jesus miraculously feeds the 5,000, some people come to seek him out and find him, but Jesus sees their motives. He knows that they have come because they want more food. Jesus says to them in verse 27, do not work for food that spoils, but for food that endures to eternal life, which the Son of Man will give you.
In other words, Jesus is saying, don't just live and chase after earthly things to try and fill you, or your hungers for purpose, meaning, recognition, or love, but instead chase after Jesus, who is the only one who can satisfy those hungers and those cravings. We see people chase after or live for so many different things like love or family or fame or power, money or recognition. Or maybe for you, it might be things like being the funniest or the sportiest or the best at football or the coolest or the cleverest or the most loved or the most popular or even the most beautiful.
Yet when we chase after these things, instead of filling us and making us feel happy or satisfied, they only cause us to want more and more and leave us feeling never full, happy or complete.
Jesus says to these people in John 6 verse 35, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty." He goes on to say in verses 48 to 51, "I am the bread of life. Your ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness, yet they died. But this is the bread that comes down from heaven. Whoever eats this bread will never die. This bread is my flesh that will be given for the life of the world."
Here we see again how Jesus fulfills this amazing work of God that he performs to the Israelites in the desert. God's provision of the daily bread from heaven to feed and nourish the people of God points to an even greater moment when Jesus comes as the bread of life, that whoever feeds off him, his word and his presence, and whoever chooses to fill their lives with him shall live forever and be forever satisfied.
We as people cannot survive for very long without food or water. They are essential for us to live, and we have to eat and drink every day to keep healthy, alive and functioning. Yet even the heavenly bread, manna, that God provided could not stop his people from dying eventually. But a faith and a trust in Jesus can, because we get to live forever with him in heaven.
Jesus is the bread of life, and just like the Israelites were provided daily with the bread from heaven and had to go and gather it daily, so Jesus wants us to come and feed off him daily. To come to him daily. So what might feeding off Jesus daily look like? Well, it could be talking to him and listening to him, asking for his help or advice, spending some time singing to him and worshipping him, or spending some time seeing what he has to say to us through his word, the Bible.
Jesus longs for us to come to him and spend time with him daily, to feed our hearts and our minds off the good things of his word and his ways. In Romans 12:2, the writer Paul says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing and perfect will."
In other words, he's acknowledging how easy it is for us to be moulded into the ways of the world, the things people live for, chase after or do. That is why he calls us to renew our minds, to refocus our minds on Jesus, his ways, his love and his plans, and to come to him each day and feed off him who truly satisfies, who makes us complete. Psalm 34 verse 8 says, "Taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the one who takes refuge in him." The Bible is full of stories and verses that speak of just how good, nourishing and enriching putting our trust in Jesus is.
If you think of your favourite food, the thing that you long for and love to eat, Jesus is so much greater than that, and he satisfies even more than that. He brings a much greater joy than feeding off of our favourite foods. This week we want to set you guys a challenge to choose one of the meals that you have every day, either breakfast, lunch or tea, and before or after that meal, spend some time with God, even if it's just 5 or 10 minutes, and taste and see that he is good. He is the best thing that this world has to offer, and he truly does bring peace and satisfaction into our lives.